morning celebration spiritual. Let us stand as we prepare to open our service in prayer. And this morning, our prayer champion, Reverend Sean, will lead us in prayer.
Good morning, beautiful people. Good morning. Close your eyes and release everything. Feel God in this space, where you sit, in your body. Rest in God at this very moment. God that is abundance, Mother, Father God that is all love and compassion, God that is all peace and harmony, God the remover of all obstacles, God everywhere present, all knowledge and all power, God the one mind, the one heart, the one love. God is the beginning, the ending, and everything in between. That God created us, that abides in us. That God uses our hands and our feet and our hearts and our minds. We exist within that perfect mind and consciousness and life and joy. There is only God and only good in us. As God, we are magnificent and everything is possible. I know this because I have experienced answered prayers. I have seen my brothers and sisters experiencing answered prayers. I have witnessed ordinary miracles, and I have experienced demonstrations of ordinary miracles. I speak with authority when I say that I am magnificent, healed, abundant, perfect, whole, and complete, and I witness this in every single one of you. I realize the highest truth for all living things. I know that behind all things is the good. I know that there is nothing but good and more good. I know that God has my back and your back, that everything is going to work out for us. I'm intentionally directing my thoughts and that divine consciousness to be a presence of love in my life and the lives of others. I am directing my thoughts right now to know that all is well in my life and all is well in your life. I'm so grateful for the rich tapestry of this congregation and those who listen and watch this service online. I know that this service will fill us all with spirit, that we will be impacted by the music, the meditation, and the message, that we will leave here today with a different attitude, perception, and feeling. We are divine. Everything is possible. We are the God experience and love in action. And we will demonstrate that throughout our week. Today I declare that I'm open to the divine realization that God already is, that we already are, that peace is already here, that love is already here, that prosperity is already here, that acceptance is already here, that equality is already here. I declare there is nothing new to create, but only to realize that God is, and that you and I are a manifestation of this divine consciousness of oneness, wholeness, completeness, and perfection. Thank you for this prayer being answered in its totality. I release this word into the divine law that already knows what to do and how to do it, and declare that it is already done. So it is with total joy, acceptance, and expectation that we now say amen, amen, ashe, ashe, and so it is. So it is.
So we celebrate you right here, right now, in the present moment. The past is gone, and the future is yet to come. And we are here now. Yes, yes? I can feel my feet on the ground. I'm in the present moment. What a joyful place I found. Here in the present moment now. I am here now. Opening to more love and more truth. Celebrate with me here and now. We are in the present moment now. Hey!
Spiritualize your cell phone. What does that mean, Pastor Yolanda? Put your cell phone on vibrate. When if something moves you, touches you, put it out there on Facebook and Twitter. Let people know where you are. Not just where you're sitting, but where you are in consciousness. We know that all minds are joined. And so you never know how what touches you will impact another life. So put it out there. And if you receive one of these blue connection cards, please fill it out. Turn it over. Put your information, especially your email address, drop it in with your offering, and we'll put you on our mailing list. When we were in the process of creating this thing that we're currently filling, animating, spiritual awakening within, we said we wanted to create a place that felt like home. And so when you come to this place, you're never a visitor. If anything, the first time you come, you're a guest. When you come back, you're family. First time you come, you're a guest. When you come back, you're family. So, if we have any first time guests, please stand briefly. First time guests. Thank you so much for being here. And remember, first time you come, you're a what? Yes. When you come back, you're what? Family. All right, let's all stand and read them like that.
So
we are one family, we're going to take this time to affirm the truth of ourselves, that we are holy, that we are beauty, and we are worthy. It's a powerful affirmation, and if you've never spoken those words to yourself about yourself, I invite you to do it today because it will feel so good. Holy, beauty, worthy. Now here's where it gets interesting because we have the opportunity to do two things. One is we have the opportunity to know this truth for our brother and for our sister when they may not know it for themselves. So the first thing we're going to do is look someone in their eye and say the simple words, you are worthy, you are worthy, you are worthy, 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 you are worthy, of everything you are worthy, yeah. You are worthy, you are oh, yeah. Worthy, worthy, you one more time, you are worthy, yeah. You are worthy, you are worthy, you are worthy, yeah. Worthy, worthy, my sister, my brother, you are worthy, you are worthy, you It's so interesting. It's so easy to look at our sister, to look at our brother and say, sister, you're worthy. Brother, you're worthy. Do you know how amazing you are? Do you know how talented you are? Do you know how brilliant you are? Do you know how fabulous you are? It's really easy to say that to your sister. It's really easy to say that to your brother. But what did you say to yourself when you looked in the mirror this morning? Did you criticize yourself when you looked in the mirror this morning? Did you talk about your body in a negative way when you looked at yourself in the mirror this morning? Did you look at yourself through the lens of your mistakes when you looked at yourself in the mirror this morning? Put your hand on your heart and sing, I am worthy. I am worthy. Yes, I am worthy. Worthy, worthy, I am worthy. Yes, I am.
Our mission and purpose is to awaken the world to the presence of God within and all around us. To celebrate this truth as one family, embody unconditional love, equip humanity to live our greatest lives, and to serve all creation. The centering thought for this month's meditation is, I feel the love of God within me now. And the song for the month is Bliss. The July message series is The Wonderful World of Wisdom, Pixar. In 1995, audiences were captivated by a new animated film that was completely computer-generated. It was the story of a cowboy doll named Woody who becomes profoundly threatened and jealous when a new spaceman, Buzz Lightyear, replaces him as the top toy in a boy's room. Toy Story not only ushered in a new era in animation, but also in storytelling. From Finding Nemo to Cars to The Incredibles, Pixar films and their characters have captured our hearts and become a part of our everyday consciousness. Today's modern storytellers find new and innovative ways to explore ancient themes from the collective unconscious. By creating characters that we can root for or identify with in some way, we learn something about ourselves and our own unique journey through life. This month, we'll become kids again. We'll travel to the wonderful world of wisdom as told by Pixar and uncover the hidden power in their stories. Pastor Greg's topic today is Stand Up and Be Counted.
It's time for your CSC news and updates. Summer hours are back at CSC, as we know. Doors are open at 10 a.m. and service begins promptly at 10:30 a.m. Summer hours will be observed through the end of August. So come early, get your spiritual food, then do something fun and relaxing with the rest of your day. Turn your staycation into manifestation. The next round of the 4T Prosperity Program begins Thursday, July 11th, and registration is open now. You can, this is your opportunity to learn from and study directly with Pastor Greg and Pastor Yolanda. The cost of the class is $99 for new students and $50 for returning students. This Sunday morning high won't fix your life. Spend some time this summer transforming your life. Go to celebratioSC.org/register to reserve your seat. Save the date. Summer 11 is coming. Join us on our annual Summer 11 Family and Friends Day celebration on Sunday, July 21st. Service begins at 10:30 and there will be lots of food, music, and fun after service. So be sure to invite your family and friends. More details to follow. Start your day by knowing the truth of who and whose you are. PGPY and the Prayer Champions pray with us and for us every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Call details can be found at the Members Services table on our website and on social media. Connect with us this Wednesday and advance confidently into your day. Text to give is fast, easy, and secure. Text your dollar amount to 347-744-9500 and follow the prompts. $10 minimum is $10 minimum donation. Again, the number is 347-744-9500. Try it out today. Now, just a few housekeeping reminders. No food or drink is allowed in the sanctuary except for water. However, please make sure that that water is covered. And now also no audio or video recording is permitted during services. And now we have an announcement from Pastor Greg and Pastor Yolanda, but before that, we'd like to say thank you for celebrating with us, and we'll see you next week.
Good morning again, everyone. So we've hit two interesting milestones for the year. One, we are in summer. And two, we are in the second half of the year, the final half of this decade. One of the things that's interesting to me about the seasons is we have an opportunity to tap into the energy of the seasons to support us. As many of you know, I created 90 Days of Greatness about 5 or 6 years ago to harness the power of the fall and winter, recognizing that those are the internal months. That's the time we should go within to actually prepare for the new year. So that's what we do. In October, we begin that process of actually planning, preparing to create what our new year will become. Well, summer has an interesting energy to it as well, because spring and summer are the external months. So they are really the months of action. As human beings, we're actually out of balance with how nature works. If you notice, nature is active and loud in the spring and summer, and then it gets really still and quiet. We're loud and active all year long, right? We actually don't have that balance, right? And so what I want to support you in doing is using the power of the summer to take inspired action on whatever your goals are. Many of you, you may have goals for the year. This first half of the year may not have gone the way you wanted it to go. The first half of the year, you may have had some stops and starts, or you may have hit some roadblocks that you didn't expect. And now there's a possibility for you to move beyond and past those things with a little bit of support. And so I want to support you. I'm offering a summer inspired action session at a 20% discount. If you're interested in working with me, it's a 1-hour session. We can do a number of things, visioning sessions, a bunch of other tools we can look at. But I'm interested in supporting you in taking the power and the energy of summer, which already has us in a mode of doing and being active. Use that energy to be active around the goals, around the things you say you want, around the things that you desire. So if you're interested, come see me, send me a message, and you can email me, you can message me on social media, it doesn't matter. And I'll send you a link to a form where I can get more information, and we can set up your session. It's going to be awesome. I only have 50 slots available, and they're being taken up fairly quickly. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. All right? Good?
Hey everybody. As Jen shared with us, in 2 weeks we'll be celebrating Summer Lovin', which is our annual family and friends event. And I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that we'll be sending out, I think Friday, an email for people that want to volunteer for the actual event. That means either volunteer on the Saturday, because we set up on Saturday, we've got a lot to get done. There will be time slots between 1 and 5. And if you would like to come early on Sunday morning and help us set up, or if you'd like to break down. So you'll get the information, you can go into the link and pick a slot, or a couple slots if you want to, and sign up to volunteer for the event. We need several people. You'll see the slots there. And if you have any questions about what we'll be doing, because I don't want to take up time doing that here, just see me after service or email me, okay? All right. Well, we have come to the time in our service that we call the meditation experience. And that name is very deliberate. We chose that name before we opened our doors more than 6 years ago. Why? Because many times we spend our time acquiring knowledge, but we never feel God. We can recite all the current bestsellers, or the people that spend their time motivating us in the field of spirituality, but we don't tap into God within us. And so all we have is knowledge. But God is a felt reality. When it gets to those times where it looks challenging, if you don't have that internal connection, that knowingness within you, that feeling of God alive within you, the book knowledge will only take you so far. You gotta know that you're one with the one. You gotta know that wherever you are, peace is available. You gotta know because you felt it. You gotta feel the love of God within you now. And when you do that, you feel a sense of bliss. Many people think bliss is a destination. I'll feel bliss when I have, as opposed to knowing I can experience bliss right now. So, let's go ahead and experiment with the experience of connecting to the source within you. So go ahead and close your eyes and bring your feet to the floor. And just notice from the inside the breath. And notice from the inside where you feel any constriction within the body. Just notice it. No judgment. Because in the ability to notice, we become present. Bring your feet to the floor and just surrender the feet to the floor. And as you relax the feet to the floor, let the back rest against the chair. If you're holding anything in your lap, go ahead and release it. There's nothing to hold on to here. Feel the sensation of being held by this physical representation we call a chair. And let our back resting, our feet planted. We take our focus to the feet, relaxing the feet, and sending energy up the shins and the calves. And relax the shins, relax the calves. Energy travels across the knees, across the thighs, and settles in the seat. Relax the seat. And And as energy travels up the spine, crossing each chakra, in our mind we imagine it activated, spinning, sending energy out the crown of our head, collectively healing and expand outside of our bodies, and then drawing it back down through the crown, relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the arms, and if you like, turn the palms up as a signal to open to more. Beautiful. Now bring your focus to the right side of the body. And together, inhale up the right side. Inhale. And exhale down the left side. Inhale up the left side. Exhale down the right. Inhale up the right side of the body. Exhale down the left. Inhale up the left. Exhale down the right. One more round. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. And now bring this energy, breath from the center. Inhale through the low belly, all the way up through the heart. Inhale. Hold it there. Open the mouth and release. Beautiful. Inhale all the way up through the heart. And exhale. One more time. Inhale all the way up. Hold it there. Open the mouth and release. Now, turn the palms down, grounding ourselves more. And inhale all the way up through the heart. It's time to close the lips. Inhale and exhale through the nose. This will be our form of breathing. Inhale and exhale through the nose for the remainder of our meditation. Now bring your focus to the heart. Imagine that space right there at the center of the chest. Imagine the heart as the center of receptivity. Imagine the heart expanding and the energy of the heart filling your entire body. Beautiful. As we sing these words, we just allow the heart to expand, making room in your life for the joy that is available right now, the peace and the bliss. As we sing, let the sensation of being in bliss fill you right now. I can have joy, I can feel peace and bliss. I can have joy, I can feel peace and bliss. I can have joy, I can feel peace. It's available right now. I can have And as we go into our silent time, if the mind wanders, it's okay. Bring it back to this knowingness that we can experience joy, peace, and bliss. And that every thought, every unloving, unkind, or worrying thought be still. And let the love of God fill you now. With our eyes still closed, we notice the peace, the bliss, the joy on the inside. And we mark this moment in time so that we can return whenever we want, simply closing our eyes and having the willingness to breathe into the God within us. Our willingness, our openness. The moment we ask for joy, for peace, or bliss, it is available. It rides on the breath. It rides on our connection to Source, and we are never denied. Start to bring yourself back now. Bring the palms together in our center. Bow the chin to the fingertips. Slowly, let your eyes open. Taking in a form directly in front of you. Inhale. Raise the chin. Raise the gaze. Now let
You dance over me while I am unaware. You sing all around, but I never hear the sound. Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. How you love me. Taste, touch, or smell it. It dances all around us while we never hear the sound, but yet we know it is active, it is working, it is operating in, through, and as us. And it is amazing to know how it loves us, loves through us, and loves in us. Again, good morning, Celebration Spiritual Center. It is good to be here. It is good to be home. It is good to be here in your presence. So we have a new month, which means we have a new series, and we have heard the description of our series, A Wonderful World of Wisdom, Pixar. And here we are on this Sunday. We are at the close of a holiday weekend. It's been hopefully a long holiday weekend for many of you. I hope you had Friday off, in addition to Thursday, as we commemorated Independence Day, the 243rd birthday of the United States of America. And we recognize that this holiday is problematic for many people. While we celebrate the freedoms that we enjoy, and we recognize that that event is a piece or a part of the reason why we celebrate the freedoms that we do today, we can't help but think of the injustices of the past. And we can't help but think of and see the injustices of the present. Yes, yes? It becomes very hard to celebrate with hot dogs and hamburgers when families are cruelly and intentionally being separated at our borders. Yes, yes? It becomes very hard to enjoy the comforts of a long weekend and the love of our family and friends when our brothers and sisters are being held right now in concentration camps. Yes, yes? We recognize that this holiday is actually very problematic. Even as we look at those injustices, we recognize that extreme weather events are taking place all over the planet right now. Extreme heat in France, in Mexico, 5 feet of hail fell in Mexico. Of course, we have the floods and the tornadoes, and soon we will be in hurricane season, and we will see unprecedented amounts of damage and hurricanes that we've never seen before on this planet. And we know that all of this is related to the crisis of climate change. And yet we're supposed to just celebrate land of the free, home of the brave, while our country is not leading or doing anything to address this crisis. And so as I was preparing for this sermon series and for this message, I felt the weight of history. I felt the weight of history because when I think about what's taking place right now in our nation, it helps me to understand in a way that I could never understand before when you read about what happened during segregation in this country, or during slavery, or you read about what happened in the Holocaust. How did people just stand by? How did people just let this happen? Because people were living regular, everyday life just like we are. Just as concentration camps exist in our country right now, and we still have our things we have to do. That's how it happens. And I felt the weight of history, understanding that we are in a time in U.S. history and world history that will be talked about, that will be written about, that will be studied, and people will look at us and say, well, how did they just let that happen? Or what was going on in the minds of certain people. And so feeling that weight, I didn't know if we should even do this series. I'm like, animated movies, cartoons, in the midst of all of this, in the midst of mothers not knowing where their children are, in the midst of babies not being fed, not having adequate amounts of food, children in cages, literally. You want to talk about some animated movies, Pastor Craig? Because I realized that this could become just a waste of time. It could become a distraction. It could lull us, as has happened so often in New Thought, into a false sense of security and safety, because I'm prosperous and I know I'm prosperous, so I'm good. And so we think that all is well, when in truth there's a call for love and a call for love in action. And so as I looked at these things, I again, wasn't even sure if I should do this series, if we should even go here. But then I remembered a Pixar film. I remembered that there's a film that supports us and right where we are this moment. It's actually the second film that was released in 1998, 3 years after the massive success of Toy Story. A somewhat different film was released, A Bug's Life. A Bug's Life was a little different because it doesn't really have the same type of characters. People fell in love with Woody and they fell in love with Buzz Lightyear. And for me, back in '95, that was my first summer working at Disney. And so I was just in love with the Toy Story characters and in love with Buzz Lightyear. I had my toy Buzz Lightyear that I used to keep on my dresser. And those characters were so beloved. Bug's Life didn't really give us that. A lot of people, even if they enjoyed the film, may not really can recall the names of the characters. And again, they're not characters that you want that doll or you want that figure. And so the story of Bug's Life, it's a story about a colony of ants that are led by the queen and her daughter, who's the princess. And every season, they are forced to give food to a gang of mean grasshoppers, led by Hopper. In the midst of gathering food for the grasshoppers, we meet the main character, Flick. Flick is a dreamer. He's an out-of-box thinker and a fledgling inventor. It's clear from the very beginning that he's not like the other ants. And he inadvertently knocks the offering of food for the grasshoppers, he knocks the whole offering over and knocks it into a stream with his latest invention, which was a grain harvesting device, which he thought would help them to harvest grain faster. Hoppers and the gang of grasshoppers, they show up and they terrorize the ants and they demand that since they don't have the food, they now have to gather twice as much food as compensation for this mistake. And Flick, after this debacle and this terrorism, he gets another bright idea. And he suggests that they need to go and seek help from other stronger bugs. He says they need to go find warrior bugs and that they will help them fight the grasshoppers. Now his idea is immediately met with fear. It's immediately met with doubt, worry, hesitation, until the other ants see it as an opportunity. They see it as an opportunity to get rid of Flick. They're like, you know what, we got to get all this grain, we got to get all the grain we gathered before, plus the grain that we need for the next season. The best thing, yes, Flick, go out, look for somebody. That way you're out of the way, out of our way, and we can do what we need to do, and we don't have to worry about you messing things up again. And so the adventure begins, right? And Flick moves on to what really is a hero's journey, a hero's adventure. He goes into the big city, into this place he's never been. He goes into a bar. It's like a tin can, right? Where the bugs are. Right, and he begins to have this experience, and he meets some bigger, stronger bugs. And when we look at this movie, there's a lot of themes that we could pull from, right? One of the first themes that we could think about is just, it celebrates individual thinking, right? It celebrates not following the pack. That immediately when we meet this character, Flick, most people start to identify with him because you see the ants following in line. They're grabbing a piece of grain, everybody's walking in line and going up, dropping off the grain and going back and just doing what we do, right? It's the rat race. Doing what we're told, doing what everybody does, following all the rules and regulations, even if we don't agree with them, maybe not even questioning whether this makes any sense. Not asking, is there a better way to do this? Not asking, is there a smarter way to do this? Just, this is what it is, and this is how it will be. There's even a moment in the movie where it's funny that in the line, a leaf falls and breaks up the line. And one of the ants freaks out because they're like, oh no, where's the rest of the line? I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. And the line completely gets held up because this leaf is in the way. Instead of walking around the leaf, that ant is just stuck, right? It's the same way that many of us do, right? In life, when all of a sudden something changes, and now we don't know what to do because we've been doing it the same way over and over again, and we don't have access to new ideas. And so we could celebrate that idea of individual thinking. We could talk about this idea that people won't understand your greatness. You have inventions in you. You have ideas in you. You have businesses in you. And people may not understand your business. People may not understand your invention. People may not understand your idea. But be like Flick and invent anyway. And be like Flick and continue to have new ideas even when one idea doesn't work. And be like Flick and remember that you're not a failure. We could preach that message. That would be powerful. And again, the persistence of Flick, to keep trying. They talk about and remind him of all of the other failed inventions that caused problems and calamity. That's why they wanted to get rid of him. Because it's like everything he invents causes problems, let's get rid of him. But he continued to persist. He never called himself a failure. Right? Failure is an event, not a character trait. He never called himself a failure. And so we could talk about that. But for me, the most powerful idea of this film and what supports what we're talking about today is a scene with the grasshoppers. And we find the grasshoppers, they're like in this bar and they're having a good time. They actually have more than enough grain. They have more than enough to drink and they're just hanging out and they're like, reveling and just having a good time and acting up, right? And so one of the grasshoppers in this mode of like, we're good, we have enough. And he says to the leader, Hopper, he's like, do we even need to go back and deal with those ants? Because look at all we have. We have enough. We're good, right? And so Hopper uses this moment to make a point. And he says, we have to go back. He says, because if you let one ant stand up to us, they might all stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. And I still remember the first time I saw that scene, it was like everything stopped for me. Because here was the idea. The bad guy in the movie is telling us something. And as we move through the story, again, Flick actually does find the stronger bugs and he brings them back. And they have this wonderful idea because they found out that grasshoppers are afraid of birds. So Flick, in all of his ingenuity and the things that he knew how to build, he said, let's build a bird, a fake bird, that we can use to scare the grasshoppers, and it's going to work. And he got everybody inspired and motivated, and they came together, and they rallied together, and built this amazing fake bird, mechanical bird, right? But ultimately, the plan didn't work. Right? You have to watch the movie to see what happens, but it didn't work, right? And so now we're in this moment, this climactic moment of the grasshoppers realize the bird is fake. They realize that this was all just a big ploy and they actually hadn't gathered the grain that they were supposed to gather. And now they're in danger of all being killed. And Hopper says, let this be a lesson to all you ants. Ideas are very dangerous things. You are mindless, soil-shoving losers, put on this earth to serve us. He's using this idea of fear to remind them that you're nothing, that you're these little ants. You tried to get a big idea, you tried to get a good idea, and it didn't work. Let this be a lesson to you, that ideas are dangerous because you're mindless, and you're put on this earth to serve us. But Flick is emboldened, because again, Flick is this person that doesn't follow along with the rules and the ways of being that all of the ants do, and he stands up and he says, you're wrong, Hopper. Ants are not meant to serve grasshoppers. I've seen these ants do great things, and year after year, they somehow manage to pick food for themselves and you. So who is the weaker species? Ants don't serve grasshoppers. It's you who need us. We're a lot stronger than you say we are. And you know it, don't you? It's a pivotal moment. Because it was at that moment that the ants began to realize this truth about themselves. And so I think that this lesson is important for us today. And why do I say that? The title of this message is Stand Up and Be Counted. As I look at some of the outcomes of the 2016 election, we find something very interesting. There was I got these statistics from the Washington Post. It talks about how as we got the data after the election, 30% of the United States citizens that were eligible to vote didn't. 30% of eligible voters did not vote in 2016. Out of those people that did not vote, almost half of them were non-white or people of color. Almost 2/3 of them were under the age of 50. And more than half of those who didn't vote earned less than $30,000 a year. Now, this is very important for us for many, many reasons, but in the context of the story, I think it's important because, first, I think in many ways, each of us are like Flick. If you're here right now at CSC and a part of this community, you're part of the 27% of the population that identifies as spiritual and not religious, right? We're actually a growing part of this country. If you're here, you know the power of thought and belief. You've learned that you can think and a thing can be. You've learned that you can use the power of your thought and belief to change your circumstance. You've learned that the power of your thought and belief and these teachings, this philosophy can sustain you in the times of crisis and lift you out of despair. If you're here, you've learned that the power of love and the power of forgiveness is real. Yes, yes? And so we're like Flick in that way. We're the individual thinkers. We do not walk in line with the rest of the world. That's why we love to identify as spiritual, not religious. That's why we love to read many texts and not just the Bible. This is why we love to be in a place that honors many texts and not just the Bible, that honors many paths in addition to Christianity and Hinduism and Buddhism, etc., etc., etc. So each of us are like Flick. But what's interesting to me is that Flick, in his knowing, was able to empower and inspire his brothers and sisters to a deeper knowing of who and whose they were. Because I think the group, in this case, that did not vote in 2016, they're like the ants in the story. See, they didn't know that they had power. The group that didn't vote, many people did not vote because they had been moved into this place of apathy. Many people did not vote because they had moved into this place of living year after year of this is how it is. We just got to work. This is how it is. Life is just hard. This is how it is. There's somebody against us. This is how it is. There's some evil power that's bigger than me. This is how it is. The grasshoppers always win. This is how it is. This is how it is. And so I have no power. So why do I need to leave work or take off of work or not get paid so I can go vote for something that's not going to support me? I think that many of our brothers and sisters did not know that the biggest fear of the grasshoppers and the biggest fear of those that are in power, that are enacting laws and policies that are against our highest ideals, they did not know that their biggest fear is that we would come to know ourselves and our power. We, the people, hold the power. And I believe that each and every one of us, as we represent this character, Flick, have the awesome opportunity in our circles. We have the awesome opportunity in our realms of influence. We have the awesome opportunity in our families, in our workplace, wherever we may be, to be that inspirer. And it's interesting, right? Because we talk about this sometimes. There's a difference between serving and helping. And again, I encourage you to watch the movie, because if you look at how Flick operated with his brothers and sisters, he never treated them as less than. He didn't look down on them. He wasn't helping them. He was serving them. He was ant to ant, human being to human being, divine to divine, serving them, recognizing what was in them, recognizing what was possible in them, which is why he could stand bold-faced and speak into the face of fear, speak into the face of this bad, evil person, if you will, and say, I've seen these ants do great things. And year after year, they somehow manage to pick food for themselves and for you. When I hear that line, I think about the brothers and sisters as we look at our immigrant family, our immigrant brothers and sisters right now. I've seen them work hard. I've seen how they come into this country and make this country great again. And now you're going to treat our brothers and sisters as though they're evil, as though there's something wrong with them, as though we should be fearful of them, and none of the data supports anything that you're saying. I've seen what they can do. So I'm going to stand up, Because I realize that you understand their power. I realize that if we stand up, if we unite, you are the one that lose out. This is what, if you look back and study in 84 and 88, what Jesse Jackson was doing in his candidacy for president and what Barack Obama was able to build upon in developing the Rainbow Coalition. If we even go back further, right, and we look at, if we look at some of the work that the Black Panthers were doing, it's something that's not talked about, how the Black Panther movement was actually working, for instance, with folks in West Virginia in rural areas, coming together, realizing that this is not a color thing. It's an economic thing. This is not a cultural thing. It's an economic thing. And we actually all want the same things. We want education for our kids. We want to be able to buy homes. We want sustainable wealth. We want to be able to move in this country in a way and feel good and feel pride. There was a recognition that we should come together because we have mutual interests. And what I believe and understand at this time in our world, this is what's required. When we look at, for instance, climate change, what's interesting about the climate crisis, the worst effects of the climate crisis, if nothing is done, the worst effects of the climate crisis will affect first the very same people that I just said did not vote in the election. It will first affect those of low income. It will first affect people of color. It will first affect the elderly. It will first affect children before it will affect any other demographic on the planet. And this is documented. We know that. And so this is why beautiful ideas and goals like the Green New Deal must contain and does contain economic components, that it ensures that everybody will have a job, right? People say that's far-fetched. It's not far-fetched. And we recognize that if folks do not have a living wage, then the climate crisis will adversely affect them. And so we recognize then that these are the types of ideas that we get to support. These are the ideas that we get to stand up and be counted, recognizing that we want to be in favor of this world that works for everyone. And then recognizing, and I just want to say this is something that Pastor Yolanda and I have discussed and we're very serious about, that CSC will be supporting registration for voting, and we're going to be putting together different events, and we want to do a number of things around that. But we think it's very important for us as a community to not just talk about these spiritual ideas in the abstract, but actually put them in action. And we think as a spiritual organization, this is something we can do. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. That's not our job. I believe in the separation of church and state. Right? But what we get to do is support our brothers and sisters, because if we see that our brothers and sisters, people of color, young people, we were watching an interview with Trevor Noah the other day, and he was talking about the electoral system and how he's baffled by the fact that less young people actually participate in our electoral system. Now, and here's his reasoning, which is interesting. What we find, and the data supports this, is that the older you get, the more likely you are to vote, and the more consistently you vote. But the old folks ain't gonna have to deal with the policies that are being enacted, right? I mean, right, real talk. And we talk about the climate crisis, or we talk about lack of gun control and lack of gun regulations. This is why I love the March for Our Lives movement. Because it's very real, it's clear. It's like, wait, we're the ones that are in school. We're the ones that are having, I never had to practice drills around, active shooter drills. We had fire drills, that was it. Right? I don't know anything about that. My daughter does. That's the world she was born into. And so it makes more sense if we can start to talk to young folks from this perspective, that actually literally, this is why the Sunrise Movement is so beautiful. Again, young folks are saying, I'm the one that's going to be affected by the climate crisis. You know, we got 70-year-olds, no shade to the 70-year-olds, but we have 70-year-olds in the Senate that literally will not be here if climate crisis becomes the issue that it can become if we do nothing about it. They're not going to be here to experience that. But the young people will. Those that are 18, about to turn 18, and of course in their 20s and 30s, are the ones that will be experiencing that. So it's important that we speak from this perspective to sway some of the apathy. The other thing I think about so often sometimes, and I understand it. There are many reasons why people of color didn't vote in the 2016 election, and I understand many of the reasons why. We also know that many of the things that were done in terms of the Russians and the bots and social media and the way that they use social media, they played upon racial divides specifically and created memes, fake memes and things to create that division. But it's interesting to me because when I think about this fear, and again, as it's symbolized in the ants in the story, people of color choosing not to vote, and they forget, or we forget, something very powerful about the right to vote. And it's just like this story where this understanding that, as Hopper says, if you let one ant stand up to us, they might all stand up. And this idea that Flick understood that I've seen these ants do great things, that ants don't serve grasshoppers, it's you who need us. We're a lot stronger than you say we are. If voting didn't work, because this is what sometimes we hear, voting doesn't work, that's not going to mean anything, it's not going to change my life. Why did they knock John Lewis upside the head? Why were they beating people, committing violence to stop someone from voting? If voting didn't matter, and we got to keep it all the way real. If voting didn't matter, why were the poll taxes enacted to keep black men, in this case at this time, from voting? If voting didn't matter, why were literacy tests created that were, please go home and Google what these literacy tests look like, because they're not can you read tests, right? They're these trick questions that really nobody could ever fully win at. And if you get one question wrong, you're out. If voting did not have power, wouldn't they say, oh, let it vote? Voting is meaningless. Why would mobs of people come together to try to create fear if it didn't matter? And it's just like the grasshoppers. It's just like the grasshoppers that understood, as Hopper so wonderfully put together. He said, these puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. If they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. If they ever figure out that they have power, if they ever figure out that there's power in the collective, if they ever figure out that they have more in common than they do in division, if they ever figure this out, our way of life changes. But thank God the way of life changes. Because the way of life that we're trying to create, see, this is not about an us versus them. This is not about creating a world where now we're on top and they're on the bottom. This is not about that. It's about creating a world that works for everyone. I stand in the complete and absolute knowing that this is possible. This is what we teach. This is what we preach. This is what oneness is all about. This is what love in action is all about. This is the fruits of these ideas that we teach in New Thought. We must come to the realization and understanding that the power is in the collective. We must come to the understanding, as Flick came to in the story, and that his dear brother and sister ants came to in the story. That they have great power. That they have done great things. And there are greater possibilities for them to experience. They no longer have to live in fear. They no longer have to live without. They no longer have to live in this place of working harder than hard. I mean, to me, the symbolism there of how hard the ants work, it just reminds me so much of how hard many of our brothers and sisters, and in many of our cases, our parents or our grandparents had to work so that we have the experience of life that we have now. The ants had to collect enough food for the grasshoppers, and then after all of that work and sweat, then they had to spend another season collecting enough food for themselves so they didn't starve. It just parallels this idea of the hard work that we've seen in our country. And yet when we don't experience the so-called prosperity of this nation, it makes us apathetic, but we recognize that there's a possibility for us that know the power of thought and the power of belief, and taking that inspiration and turning it into inspired action. We stand with our brothers and sisters. We do not treat them as other. We do not treat them as anything less than. But we know that we are one with them. And we know that as they are empowered, we are empowered. We know that as they are lifted up, we are lifted up. We know as they are set free, we are set free. We know as they are given opportunity, it creates more opportunity for all of us. We know as we live up to the ideals of this country, that all men, women, children, boy and girl, grandmother, grandfather are created equal and are endowed by our Creator certain inalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We will indeed create a world that works for everyone. I invite everybody to stand. So we take a breath into this moment. Mother, Father God, I recognize that you are. I recognize that you are everyone and everything. I recognize that you are everywhere at all times, constantly encountered. I recognize that you are neither a person, place, nor thing, but you are that thing, that substance, that holy divine substance that becomes all that we need or desire you to be in the moment. I recognize you are the thing that fills the mold of our thought easily and effortlessly. I recognize that you are the thing that moves from thought to energy into matter. I recognize that you are here now. And as I recognize that you are here now, I remember and unify myself with you yet again. For I am one with you and I am one of you. I am your son, I am your child, I am your good idea. And as I recognize who and what I am, I recognize and remember that is the same truth of my sister, that is the same truth of my brother. My sister, my brother, you are one with God. You are God's good idea. You are one of God. You are created in God's likeness and image. You hold the attributes. You hold the privileges of being a divine, holy being. You live in the kingdom of heaven. It is here now. And as I recognize who and what I am, as I recognize who and what my brothers and sisters are, I recognize that again, this truth is not just truth of us spiritual folk. It is not just true of us folk as we are here in the spiritual community on Sunday doing spiritual things, but it is the absolute truth of our brothers and sisters across the planet. It is the truth of that baby that is crying right now in the camps. It is true of that mother that is crying right now in the camps, wanting to hold that child. It is true of that child that is hungry right now. It is true of our brothers and sisters that are in need of the basics of life as they are seeking asylum, as they are seeking freedom, as they are seeking a new way of life, as they are seeking a new way of being. It is true of all of us. So right here and right now, I speak this word. I speak this word into the mind of God, from which all things come. I know that there is a power in the collective, for I know that God is the collective. Right here and right now, I choose to stand up and be counted with the collective. I choose to stand up and be counted with the collective that knows that peace is possible. I choose to stand up and be counted with the collective that knows that each and every one of us can live a life of prosperity and have more than enough. I choose to live and stand with the collective that knows that all of us can have health care that is affordable, that is easy and effortless. I stand in the knowing right here and right now with the collective that knows that there are beautiful and powerful and sustainable solutions that exist right now that can begin to be implemented that would move us into addressing this crisis of climate change. I stand with the collective. I stand with the collective that believes that each and every person should have a living wage. I stand with the collective. I stand with the collective that knows that each and every one of us should be able to live in peace and will be able to live in harmony and will be able to live in joy. I stand with the collective. I stand with the collective that knows that we are more powerful together than we are ever apart. I stand with the collective that knows that we have more in common than we have apart. I stand with the collective that knows that there is one race, the human race. I stand with the collective that knows that each and every one of us are divine, holy, precious beings. I stand with the collective. I stand with the collective that says that black lives matter, that says that LGBT lives matter, that says that women's lives matter, that says that disabled lives matter, that says that tall people's lives matter, that says that short people's lives matter. I stand with the collective that knows that each and every one of us matter equally, and each and every one of us are able and capable and worthy of having an amazing life. I stand with the collective. I choose to stand up and be counted today. I choose to stand up and be counted and live from this place of revolutionary ideas. I choose to stand and be counted, to think outside the box. I choose to stand up and be counted and receive new ways of seeing and new ways of being, new ideas, new inventions that will take us into this world of prosperity that works for everyone that we believe is possible. I choose to stand up and be counted. No longer believing that there is some power outside of me that can control me or diminish me in any way. But right here and right now, I speak to that thing and I say, be gone. I speak to that thing and I command it to go back into the sea of nothingness from which it came. For evil has no roots, it has no mother, it has no father. There is no dark switch. But there is a light switch, and I turn on the light within me. And when we together bring our individual lights together, we illuminate this world, we heal our planet, and we change our experience. For this truth, I am so very grateful. I release this prayer right here and right now into the mind that creates all things perfect, whole, and complete. And together we say, amen, amen. Ashe. Ashe. And so it is. So it is. Thank you, guys.
Have a seat, everybody. There is power in the collective. And what does that mean for me individually? That means you've got to know that you have power. You're not waiting to just join the power. You bring in the power. But you've got to understand what you're connected to, what flows through you, what birthed you, what created you as a divine inspired idea. You've got to know all of that. And then you stand and you move forward this week knowing that the power is within me. And wherever I am, the collective can join me. I am one with consciousness. And so I'm bringing the power, I'm bringing the light, I'm bringing the truth. This week as you go out, whether it's in your individual lives where you need to draw more power or you are called upon to serve, realize that you are connected to a stream that is unending, a source of power that cannot be extinguished. Let that power guide your actions this week, your service this week, your thoughts this week. And realize and recognize that you don't stand alone. You can't stand divided. And through this connection, we will all go on to our greatest and best lives. Thank you, Pastor Greg.
In this moment, it is time to prepare for giving. So if there's anyone, if you need an envelope or you need a pen to complete your envelope, please just raise your hand. Our ushers are so happy to support you. So we have a hand here in the front. Thank you to those who are giving or have given online. It's very easy to do. You can go to our website. You should actually see it on your fan. CelebrationSC.org. Scroll down to the giving section. If you'd like to text to give, the number again is 347-744-9500. 347-744-9500. I want to take a moment also to just share, for those that may not have heard this last week, Summer Lovin' is coming. Summer Lovin' is on the 21st. How many people have attended our Summer Lovin' event over the past few years? It's always awesome, yes, yes? Beautiful, right? And so we want to make sure that we can keep it at that level. And so we are asking for your support in contributing to the greatness of that event. If you want to give online, you'll see there's a drop down there for Family and Friends Day to give above and beyond what your normal giving is, so that we can meet our requirements to have an amazing event. We have lots of guests coming in. Nobody pays anything ultimately for it. There's more than enough food. People eat as much as they want. There's always leftovers. And so we want to continue to be able to enjoy and continue to just have a festive time in that way. So for those that are able, if you're able to give towards this event, we ask for your support there so that we can continue to have this event at the level that we've had it over the past years. And we give from a place not of lack, right? Please don't give if you don't have it, right? Even though you want to give, you're like, oh, Family Friendly is awesome, I want to be able to give. Please don't get into a shaming, guilting vibe, right? Because we recognize that that actually takes you out of the blessing of giving. The power of giving is the ease and effortlessness at which you give. The joy that you give from, the knowing that there's more than enough. So please, give from that place. And when we give from that place, then we affirm what? All the money that I use returns to be multiplied in a never-ending cycle of increase and enjoyment. With that, I call our ushers forward. Let us take a very joyous moment.
Knowing that we are the salvation of this world. We release these words, and together we say, Amen, Ashe. So it is.
Let's affirm together. I give my love. More love comes rushing back to me. I give my time. More time for them. I give my treasure. Doors are opening for me. As I give and receive, it's all right about me. Right about me. Yes. Right about me.
Your awareness of love's presence, or you're blocking your ability to step out in a bold new way. Write them down and leave them on the altar. And our prayer champion, Reverend Shauna, will pray over them all week, because guess what? We don't beg God. We know that God is alive and well within us and responding to us. always responding. So we don't beg, we don't bargain, we don't beseech God. We know that God and its will for us is perfect happiness. And with this understanding, when we release all those things that seem to be blocking us, what do we say? All things are possible. Now, all things are possible. Now, every little thing is possible. 'Cause I know who I am, and I know whose I
Now all things are possible. Yes, everything is possible. I know who I am, and I know who I am. Magnificent God. Now everything is possible. Because I know who I am, and I know who I am.
How you doing?